The Chevrolet Cruze is one of those cars that's less about dream motoring and more about practical everyday driving. Unfortunately for it, there are quite a few cars like that. Things like the Kia Cerato and more specifically the Toyota Corolla, which is consistently one of South Africa's best-selling cars. To try and make some of those sales come their way, Chevrolet have just updated the Cruze. As far as midlife upgrades go, this is a very mild one. For example, there is precisely one change on the interior, and there is precisely one change as far as the model lineup goes. The styling changes are the most obvious and include things like LED daytime running lights, of course, and quite a dramatic change at the rear. Dramatic not just because it's quite different from the original, but also because it borrows quite heavily from Chevrolet's more desirable Camaro, a car not really known for its daily comfortable driving. And rather than being completely incongruous on a car like this, it actually works. I like it. It's still not the most earth-shattering thing you've ever seen, but it does seem that the days of these kinds of cars just blending in are starting to become extinct, thankfully. When cars like the Cruze and the Corolla and the Cerato manage to display a bit of visual interest, it's a good day for car kind. A more modern exterior is matched to a more modern interior, kind of. Usually when we talk about facelifted models and their interiors, we mention things like new materials or a better layout. But in the Cruze, there's none of that, because there is only one single difference between the old one and the new one, and it's over there. It's the miling system that's now standard on all LS models. Based around a color screen in the center stack, MyLink, as the name implies, allows you to connect your mobile phone and take advantage of things like Stitcher Internet Radio. Bluetooth and USB connectivity are also part of the package. As for the rest of the unchanged interior, it's still a decent setup, solidly put together with decent materials, although the persistence in using fabric to cover parts of the dashboard is, to me, still a bit odd. It's the kind of thing that'll almost certainly show wear and tear in the form of sun-faded cloth. It is a comfortable setup with decent space all round, and the boot is a particularly useful size. Engine options in the Cruze include a 2-litre diesel, a 1600 petrol and a 1400 petrol turbo, which is what we're driving. The power delivery of 103 kilowatts and 200 newton meters isn't the most electrifying thing in the world, but it is steady, pushing all the way up to the 6,000 RPM mark, at which point it starts to get a little bit noisy. Not completely unexpected, and possibly also a result of this engine having to loosen up. Our test car hadn't even done 500 kilometers. Our Cruze took us through some of the Cape Winelands, and although we didn't get to push it through one of those famous mountain passes, the car still managed to show off a bit. On the move, the Cruze's undoubted strength is its ability to soak up rougher surfaces. And it is quite surprising because you don't expect mild-mannered cars like this to be too happy when you start to push them. But if you do find yourself a decent set of corners, this car does stay composed and will handle them pretty well. Very reassuring is probably the best way to describe it. Another minor change to the Cruze lineup is the availability of the 6-speed auto gearbox for the 1.4 turbo. In operation, it's perfectly fine, despite its occasional decision to hold on to third gear for an inexplicably long time before shifting. It's generally quite smooth and straightforward, but there is a slight oddity to it though. If you compare the automatic gearboxes in the Corolla or the Cerato, for example, you find that there are slight differences. The Toyota's automatic gearbox is slightly more efficient. The Kia's automatic gearbox is slightly less efficient. The key word there being slightly. In the Cruze, the automatic gearbox is a full 1 litre per 100 kilometers more thirsty than the manual, which doesn't sound like a lot until you start doing the maths. Based on Chevrolet's own fuel consumption figure, the 60-litre tank in the manual should give you just over 1,000 kilometers. The automatic, with its 1 litre per 100 k's extra, will give you just under 900 kilometers. That means in an average year doing 20,000 kilometers, you'll be filling up the manual 19 times and the auto 23. With today's fuel prices, that's around 2,500 Rand a year more for the privilege of driving a self-shifting Cruze. That's also assuming you'll be able to even get close to Chev's claimed consumption, which you almost certainly won't be. Oh, and did I mention you also paid 10 grand extra for the auto in the first place? Not the most convincing argument to pick the new gearbox option, but there are still other reasons to consider the Cruze. By now we're used to the fact that midlife updates can be a little bit underwhelming, but the Chevrolet Cruze has taken that to a whole new level. With minimal styling tweaks and just about no other changes, there's not a lot to get excited about. But it also means that it's still a comfortable and capable daily transport option, even if the automatic gearbox isn't the most economical choice. The Cruze's 1400 turbo is no firecracker, but it has steady power delivery and is easy to live with. The 6-speed auto box works well enough, except when it comes to the running costs. The updates to the Cruze aren't numerous, but they are effective. The styling tweaks add a bit of appeal, and the new infotainment system is welcome, adding to a decent all-round package.